Welcome everybody. I'd like to play a song for you I wrote about our goats. We have these two goats here. They're called Angie and Judy, and it's really really awesome to watch them bust out of the fence sometimes and get to the grass and be free for a little bit. So this is what that song's about. Angie and Judy were sweethearts, goats as happy as you'd ever see. Angie and Judy, prancing merrily, but they always wish they could be free on top of a mountain, free out there with the Billy boys, free to do what you want to, free without fences all around. Angie and Judy were sneaky. They fit through the fence in the gray, and cropping over to the horses were only met with hay. So they trotted back, wishing they could be free on top of the mountain, free out there with the Billy boys, free to do what you want to, free without fences all around. Angie and Judy craved the grass on the other side of the fence, looking so green. All day long waiting, butting heads, calling out to me. So I flung the gate off and I let them out. Now they are free to nibble on nettles, free to go into the chicken coop, free to wander and explore, free without fences all around. Angie and Judy. We'll go visit them someday. Welcome everybody to Wild Nature Walk, Uznea, and here we are on this beautiful gray sky, blue sky day, big fluffy clouds up there. And this last week it's been killer hot, like 30, 35 every day, and the whole world here is just burst into life, burst into green. All the leaves are out in the trees. It's been quite a quick, rapid growth, and it's been awesome to watch happen. And now it's we got a rainstorm yesterday and things have really cooled down, and it's a delight to be outside and not be sweating buckets. So today I want to ask you, what do you appreciate about living on this earth? What do you like about being on this planet of all planets? And some things I appreciate is the sound of the birds in the morning and the smell of the soil after it rains. What's that called? Petrichor, I think. And I love that every day is different and every season's different, and things are always changing in nature. So I'll just step back, take in the scenery, take in those different shades of green going on right now. Little punk rock tip: if you don't have a pick, use a bread tag. All right, today we're going to wander a little bit through the garden, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about the vision I have for that space and the story that led me to be here at Circle R Ranch. Thank you, water. Let's go. Watch out, this stump has a whole nest of ants that came in the last couple days. They're all in there. Maybe. Little mushrooms, yeah. They look like these little ones I ate a long time ago. I looked them up in a book. They're called alcohol inkies. And they're edible, but if you consume any kind of alcohol during the time after eating them, you'll break out in hives. So it's a really interesting one to know about as an adult. So before I go in it, I just want to show you this space and get you to imagine 10 years ago when I came here, well 9 full years ago, 10 summers ago, I arrived on this land and I was really keen to have my own garden. I'd worked on many farms. I'd traveled through Japan and traveled around Montreal and Quebec and worked on many farms, and I was really keen to get into the soil and start planting my own plants. And luckily I knew Sarah Tracy, or her name is Nell, and she said you should come to the ranch and live your dream. And so I did. And I first got here, I remember standing on this boardwalk with Tega, and he just said, he looked at it and said, okay, do what you want here, this is your garden. And it pretty much all looked like this back here, with goldenrod and some wildflowers and lots of grass and a few shrubs like dogwoods and stuff, but there wasn't really anything here. And so I started digging. I didn't really know where to start because it was such a big space. So way in the back corner over there, there's a patch of rhubarb I found when I was looking around. I said, well, this is a good start. There's already something to eat here. So I started digging there, which is in the back corner over there. And so that first summer, I was really keen to grow a lot of vegetables. I had a wild dream to feed the campers with the vegetables that came out of this space, and so I made all these rows. I dug up this big plot over there, had all these straight rows. My dad lent me a tiller and had the soil exposed, and all these rows of vegetables, of broccoli and tomatoes and peppers and cabbages and Brussels sprouts and stuff like that. And it didn't take long before I realized that there was lots of wild animals in the forest here that would want to come and eat these vegetables. And so I would come into the garden and they're ready to harvest some good things in the morning, and I'd be like, no! All my plants have been eaten. All the things I was excited about harvesting and feeding people with started to disappear really quickly. And so I started to read some of these old almanacs and try the craziest things. Like they say, put human hair around your plants. That's supposed to deter them, but that didn't really deter them. They said, like, find out where they're coming in and put a fence on the ground, and that'll feel weird to the deer's hooves, for example. And tried that. That didn't work. They just went around the fence. I peed everywhere to try to, mark my scent. And nothing was working. I even slept in the garden between 2 beds of broccoli. I remember I was going to harvest the next day. I swear they came and ate around me while I slept. So I had a hard time that summer, and I used to yell at the deer all the time. I'd see a deer in the woods. I'm like, hey, get out of here. Get out of my garden. And that started to not feel so great, because I actually love these wild creatures out here. And like, there's got to be a different way, another way to grow food and to also be able to share with the wild animals but still grow abundance. And so I started learning about something called permaculture. And the main principle of permaculture is to look at nature, look at how a forest is grown and how Mother Earth just grows these things naturally. No one has to water the forest or weed the forest. And learn from those principles in nature and then apply them into growing food systems. Like berries that are growing here, these currants you can see growing in like a shrub. And then on the lower level here we have some mint growing up. So there's different layers that nature creates along the edges of forests and fields. And I started to mimic that. So I'll show you a really good example over here. So I got really keen to start planting a lot of trees the more I started thinking about what a food forest or a food forest garden could look like. And I think this was one of the first ones I planted. It's a cherry tree, and it's got lots of little cherries. It just finished flowering. Oh, there's one right there, developing. They're really delicious. And my first, one of my first summers, this was the compost pile. And when I planted this cherry tree, it just took off. And it's quite huge now. It's maybe, I guess, 8 years or 7 years old. But it just shows you planting a tree that's this tall, how quickly it can really grow. And then I planted all these different plants around to create a community of plants that all work together in a system. So we've got some currant bushes under here. Over here, this is a plant called comfrey that has really deep roots, and it tends to bring up nutrients from deep down in the soil. So I chopped this down and scattered around to distribute the nutrients that the different plants need to grow. And there's lots of other different like garlic, and this is valerian root, which is good if you can't sleep. This will eventually grow big and flower. So I've started creating these systems here that hopefully will grow us lots of food and also provide us with lots of other things like shade and a place to put a hammock and a climbing tree and medicinal plants and stuff like that too, which can help heal us. So that's what I've been working on for the last 9 years. 9 full years is just growing this space into a forest. And I was sitting around looking at it yesterday thinking, wow, look at these trees. They're all really healthy. They're all taken off, and there's tons of berry bushes, tons of food starting to come out of this plot, which I don't have to work too hard to maintain. It's just nature doing its thing now. I just have to cut the grass once a week. So after being here a couple years, I realized I would like to build a greenhouse, and this is the greenhouse that resulted. But I didn't want to build it any old way. I wanted to build it that had many functions and build it out of recycled material. So come on in, I'll show you how that looks. And this is the greenhouse. So what we built most of the structure out of was tires. We collected all these tires and we filled them with soil. And that was about 2 years of taking lots of soil and packing it with a sledgehammer into the tires. So they're really, really full, like the one your foot's on there. And using those as a building material. So your tires are free and oftentimes don't have a use after so long. So it was a way of recycling them. And then all the wood most of the wood was collected from different areas that was recycled also. And the sort of science of the space is that there's an angle on the windows here. And that angle is perpendicular, which is at right angles to the sun when it's winter, the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. That's when the sun is very low in the sky, and then it comes in and hits these tires, and the tires absorb the heat like a battery. And then when it's cold at night, the warmth from the tires comes out and regulates the heat in here, so it's not as hot, or not as cold in the winter. So that's sort of science of it. And then in the summer, you don't really need a greenhouse. You don't need a lot of sun in here, so the sun's way high up in the sky right now. And the tires, because they're filled with earth, are really cool. So this is actually a cooler space. So that's sort of the how I built it and the reasons I built it. We used to have ducks and chickens living in here. Might have to get those going again soon. And lots of different plants that I'm able to overwinter that wouldn't last outside. And so that's a little of my story and what I'm passionate about. And It's beautiful to look around at what I've been able to accomplish in 10 summers, and all the food that it's going to come, and also be able to provide for the wild animals too. The raccoons and stuff come in and eat berries, and the deer. But there's so much food here that there's lots to share, and that's my vision. And I challenge you or welcome you to share or think about what's your vision for this earth. And as we move into, what we are as humans now, as things are shifting and changing in the world, what's your vision? So thanks for watching, and hope you're well, and peace.